Hello, everybody. We're on day 2.5 of the conference. Is everybody feeling vigorous, active, rested? All right, I'll do my best to keep you rested. So we all have heard about false allegations, and they have been discussed often in our conference today. But is false allegations really just is it limited to just one or two countries, or is it really widespread? And if it's widespread, how many what are the actual numbers? Because before, we've never known the actual numbers. Now we know the numbers of people who have been falsely accused, say they've been falsely accused, in 8 countries. So let's see, let's find the control. I'm told I can point anywhere in the room and it'll work. Oh, well, I have to push the right button. All right. So DAVIA is the Domestic Abuse and Violence International Alliance. It's an international NGO. The focus is on domestic violence and domestic abuse. And the mission is to make sure domestic violence and domestic abuse policies are family affirming, science-based, and male inclusive. So we view false allegations as one form, as one type of domestic abuse. DAVI has 83 member organizations all around the globe. You can see where they're located. So we know that just looking at the big picture, 30,000 feet, we know that domestic violence is pretty much an equal opportunity problem. There have been literally hundreds of studies on domestic violence done in every continent in the world. And here's the conclusion. Women are as physically aggressive as men or more in their relationships with their spouses or opposite sex partners. Here's the source. And I'll just add, it's very interesting. If you look at women in same-sex relationships, their rates of domestic violence are in fact much higher than heterosexual relationships or male homosexual relationships. So it's important that we not confound false versus unfounded. Some people use those terms interchangeably. They're not. So false means that an accusation is made in bad faith with the aim of harming the other person. So it's not an issue of just meeting the legal standard of proof. That's unfounded. We're talking about accusations that are made in bad faith. And there's several categories: domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, or allegations of neglect. And obviously, these allegations are commonly seen in parental alienation cases. Okay, so are they really a serious problem? Well, absolutely, yes. This is the United States. These are wrongful convictions. People who were found in a court of law to be guilty of a crime, sent to jail, sometimes for 10 years or 20 years, and later found, when they appealed the sentence, they found that the person was wrongfully convicted, they were exonerated. And you can see, looking at the causes of those wrongful convictions, perjury or false accusation is over 60% of those wrongful convictions involved perjury or false allegation. So this is really a big deal. And these false allegations are often seen in the media. Everybody remembers Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. She was clearly the abuser. She was abusive both psychologically and physically. And she accused him of domestic violence in a editorial in the Washington Post, which is the source of the trial. This is even more recent. This was just in February. Michael Irwin was a leading football player in the United States. All right. He was accused of sexual misconduct in a hotel, not in his own bedroom, but in a public area of the hotel. And the surveillance cameras were on. And I actually watched the surveillance camera. There's absolutely nothing there suggestive of sexual misconduct. The two of them just were talking together and laughing about jokes for 2 or 3 minutes, and that was it. Well, anyway, so these are common. So in child custody disputes, one parent makes it a false allegation as a way of gaining leverage in the court proceeding. Often the targeted parent has no opportunity to refute the accusation. Okay, I'm very briefly, this is the first ever international population-based survey. It was done by an independent research firm called YouGov. And the respondents are representative of the overall population of those countries. Okay, so this year's survey was actually inspired by the same survey we did 3 years ago. And we found, this is the key figure, 8% of people said they had been falsely accused of abuse, 2020. All right, keep that 8% in mind as we look at the survey results in a minute. So here are we wanted to select 8 countries. We didn't have a budget to survey every country. So we had to be selective. We did want to get a broad range of countries, a broad diversity. So you can see 2 in North America, 3 in Europe and elsewhere. The survey actually was conducted fairly recently. Okay, so here are the results. So we're going to start, and this is also in your handout, so you can follow along. So we'll start off with this column here, the overall yes responses. Now remember, people were asked, have you ever been falsely accused of part of family abuse? And we explained domestic violence, sexual assault, or child abuse. Okay, so that was the realm. All right, look at India. 19% of people said they had been falsely accused of some sort of family abuse. And so we've arranged these in order, going from India all the way down. And it's interesting, the 3 countries of Europe were all at the bottom of the list. I don't know why. That's where they felt, and I'd be interested to know your ideas why that is. But anyway, so Poland, Spain, United Kingdom were all 4%. United States, remember the survey we did 2 years ago in the United States, it was 8%. Using the identical questions, the same methodology, it's gone up to 10%. That's worrisome. You can see where the other countries fell. Okay, so now compare these 2 columns. It's also in your handouts. In every country, males were more likely to be the target of the false allegation. And in many of these countries, it was a 2-to-1 ratio. Look at Argentina, look at Poland, Spain, United Kingdom, about a 2-to-1 ratio. Now, when we get up to India, 17% versus 19%, it kind of sounds like they're so widespread that everybody it's an equal opportunity problem. Okay. So that's the big picture of it. And I've already, the other point I want to make is, so I've actually shared this with some people in various countries, and they've looked at, 4%. That's so low. I'm not going to share these data because that's such a low number. Wait, do the multiplication. Multiply 4% by the total population of the United Kingdom. You're talking about 2.7 million people saying they have been falsely accused. So let's not use the word only. This is a severe problem everywhere. Did you have a question, comment? Okay, all right. Okay. So going to the next piece. All right, so here's the previous survey, 8%. Just to make that point that percentage has gone up 2% in a 3-year period, which worries me. So now the next question is, well, we know that the targets of the allegations are in every country more likely to be men and women, but who are actually making the allegations or accusations? And in 7 out of the 8 countries, a majority of the false allegations were made by females. The one exception being Poland, 40%, 47% the accusation had been made by a male, 44% the accusation had been made by a female. The gray is don't know or didn't answer. So that also is, with the exception of Poland, suggests a pattern that's worrisome. So now let's get to the central question of the title of today's presentation. How often were these accusations made during a custody dispute? So here are the actual percentages. These are also in your handouts. So you can see that there's a lot of variation. United Kingdom, 13%. But here we are, Australia, and 36%, Poland, 35%. So I recall yesterday there was a presentation from a person from Poland who talked about, yes, your presentation, by the way, who talked about the extreme abuses of the system. This seems to corroborate that observation. So in any case, these often are made as the false allegations often are made as part of a custody dispute. Now, let's look at this from the other side of the picture. There's some groups or there's some people who have no problem with false allegations. They think it's a good thing. This is a quote from a feminist in the United States. Men who are unjustly accused of rape can sometimes gain from the experience. Whoa. There are groups right now in the United States seeking to remove legal sanctions on false accusers. For example, following the Amber Heard verdict and decision, groups were saying, maybe we should eliminate defamation as a crime. What's wrong with defaming? Well, I'm not going to try to parody what they said, but there are groups that actually are trying to minimize these laws relating to defamation, false swearing, and so forth. And one group I came across actually suggests that false allegations are protected by free speech laws. And here it is. This is a panel that was held 2 months ago. The chilling impact on First Amendment rights after Depp v. Heard. Is anybody else as startled as I am by that statement? All right. To say that a false allegation is okay is part of free speech. Whoa. All right. So conclusions: false allegations of abuse are widespread. In 3 countries, we saw that 10% of persons or more said they had ever been falsely accused. And given that we saw such a fairly consistent pattern in those 8 countries, I'm willing to say that in virtually every country in the world, false allegations are a problem. We don't know the extent, but this is a start. A majority of the perpetrators are females. They are a common barrier to shared parenting. And maybe the key take-home point is most countries, at least in the United States and elsewhere, already have laws that say you can't make false allegations, but they're not enforced, right? Lack of enforcement. So I believe, oh, here are the recommendations. So engage in education efforts, place pressure on prosecutors and judges to punish false accusers, and counter the efforts of groups that are seeking to enable or justify false allegations or deny that they are a problem. So those are my formal comments. Do we have any time for questions?
Thank you. We have time, but because I think that the two of the speakers will not show up. So yes, I've seen it. So we have time because you are leaving. You must leave here at latest 2:15. So I think, was it you that raised your hand first? Please. Okay. Yeah. And then.
As you mentioned, I'm from Poland, so let me share with you results of my research in 2014. Small sample, about 200. The situation in Poland seems to be worse, not bad. And according to my results, I asked about two accusations, two kinds, domestic violence and sexual abuse. Of course, we should have in mind methodology, on which level it was stopped, on level of police, of level of prosecutor, of level of court or sentence. But generally, I asked, and about domestic violence, more than half cases, more than half, not 4%. In case of sexual abuse, about 20%.
Was that a random, was that a representative sample of Poland? Okay, all right.
Okay, Peter, I think you raised your hand. Yes, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's amazing to be able to have the numbers and be able to see how massive the scale it is, this problem is. I guess my question is, how do you recommend that we can use this data now and be able to make changes? You know, are we sharing this with judges? Are we like, how are we doing this?
So just yesterday, I was on Twitter and I saw a Twitter post that said, in the United Kingdom, there are thousands of false allegations, right? And I didn't have time, but I wanted to respond. Well, you know what? The actual number is 2.68 million persons in the United Kingdom. So I think, you know, for me, the place to start is with good, solid data. Okay, so data that is scientifically sound, because that's sort of the common language. Okay, so that's where I would start. I think this, I mean, Davia is trying to disseminate this information through publications and so forth. And obviously advocacy efforts are needed at the country level with prosecutors, with judges to enforce these laws.
Still those some.
Thank you. I've got two questions. Yes, I'm Rei Ozaki from Japan. I'm a separated father from a daughter. I've got two questions. The first one is, it was a very good research, I think, but to make that more reliable, I think we need to confirm that false allegation was really false. You know, is there any way to get that sort of information? And the second one is, if you are falsely alleged to be a abuser, it is really extremely difficult to prove you are innocent. Even Johnny Depp was on the edge of losing the legal battle. So what could be the countermeasure for that false allegations in the court, maybe? Thank you.
So your first question is about how do we confirm that it truly was a false allegation? Given that this was a survey, this methodology was an online survey, I can't think of a good scientifically sound way to do that. This is self-report data. That said, there was no incentive for people to exaggerate or for people to lie. They weren't going to get a prize in the mail or something if they gave a certain answer. So there's no incentive to misrepresent the truth. So that's the nature of an online survey, of a self-report survey. So as far as your second question about in the actual adjudication, so this is where due process, the basic concepts of due process, the basic concept of presumption of innocence, the basic concept of requiring independent evidence, not just an allegation, but confirmation either from, medical records or independent witnesses, or that's the importance of having that. And what we've seen in the past 10 years is efforts by feminist groups to expand definitions of domestic violence to include coercive control. How do you prove that you didn't commit coercive control? There's no physical evidence, right? Unless you have video. So that's a very difficult problem that we face.
There's still one at the back.
I had similar questions. And I guess to build off that, Petra mentioned that, parental alienation, domestic abuse, we're all on the same side. I mean, we're all addressing different manifestations of the same problem. Do you work with victims of domestic violence in substantiating allegations, right? I mean, one of the ways to, I think, disprove a negative or prove a negative is to compare the lack of evidence with evidence that might be presented in a case of actual, instances of domestic violence. Do you work with victims in those scenarios and say, this is how you present evidence, this is what it would look like, and then you can compare a negative to the actual demonstrated instances, founded, substantiated allegations of domestic violence?
Davia, the Domestic Abuse and Violence International Alliance, is a policy organization. So our focus is on the laws, the policies, the training methods. We don't have a specific focus on helping individual victims of false allegations, although we have information on our website on how to cope with it. So, but we are primarily a policy organization.
Even on an organizational, I mean, just kind of, we all look at the same problem from different angles, right? And be able to bring the different perspectives.
Right. I see we have lost our slides. But to answer your question, so I mentioned earlier, Davi has 83 member organizations, and many of those groups, in fact, do exactly that, are provide support, assistance to fathers who are going through this process. So yes, many of our member organizations do exactly that. So the question is Japan included as one of the countries in Asia? We have members in the Philippines, India, not yet Japan. I'm hoping your organization might want to join. You're welcome. You would be, and by the way, our membership is free and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, Edward, I want to thank you. I know that you are heading back and you have to leave in few minutes, but thank you very much. Good journey home.